Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Well, I want to talk about Transformers the movie. I haven't watched it in years. I just watched it the other day. I've been doing a Transformers marathon, and I went through all the original series, season 1 and 2, and then Scramble City, which I just discovered, and of course the movie. Now, my introduction to the film, I'm not sure where I first saw the film. My real memory of the film is the Lady Bird book, of course. I had this, and I would just stare at the images from the film forever. I had the cassette. It was a Telltale cassette and book with some nice poster art, which I hadn't seen elsewhere. And yes, so I used to listen to that endlessly and look through that book endlessly, and that was Transformers the movie for me. Really was this book, but I think I saw it on video when I was a kid. I'm sure I didn't see it on TV. I think a friend's mother rented it for me and her son. I think we watched it at his place. I think that's how I saw it the first time. And then later on, when I was a teenager, I rented it on video, and it was kind of just weird to see a different cover art on the video that was different from this poster that I was used to staring at, because it was the only thing I had of it. And then later, in I think 2023, they did a Transformers the movie DVD, Australia. It had very few special features. It had some 80s TV spots, which are basically commercials, and some TV spots for the film, and a theatrical trailer, and of course an incredibly bad green faded video version of the Touch music clip, and some biographies and stuff like that. And it also had two covers, which really the only difference is the Transformers writing is, the Decepticon version, not the Autobot version, the same as the other side. So that was the first one, and it looked bad. It was basically the video transfer that I watched as a kid that was really dark and had a fair amount of contrast issues, and looks totally different from the later print. Now later on we got the special edition, which also had reversible cover, painted art, and more sort of Dreamwave sort of style comic art, with more special features. We got a commentary. We got a copy of Scramble City, the bonus episode, which actually kind of sets up the movie. It actually shows Ultra Magnus taking charge of Autobot City and that being built, and just sort of sets up the movie fairly well. And we had more toy commercials, the same sad video of the Touch, and like some animated storyboards and stuff like that. So, and that was amazing quality, just amazing quality. When you look at the original video, version of the original video, it looks appalling. The colours are different, the details are different, the darkness just hides so much detail in that. And there was the issue of widescreen and full screen, because looks like the original art was done full frame, as though they would split it up and maybe make it the first 5 episodes of season 3 or something. Maybe they were thinking of doing that, which they didn't do. They created the 5 Faces of Darkness, I think, instead. And did the same thing. That was treated like a TV movie, I think, at one point, but it was shown as 5 separate episodes. The widescreen version, it fills the screen. You get a little bit more on the sides, just a tiny little bit more on the sides, but you lose a lot on the top and bottom. The full frame version, of the full screen version, you get all this extra information on the top and the bottom, but you miss a little bit on the side. So I can't decide which version to watch. When you've been watching all the full frame versions of the original series, it seems natural to just slide into that, and you do get more visuals. But to watch the full screen, widescreen, fill your screen, is totally different. So this version had, I think this is the one that had the widescreen and full frame. You got both on DVD, 2 DVDs, and one was widescreen, one was full screen. I know one of the editions is that. I think it's this one. Then they did the Blu-ray version, which doesn't look the same as the widescreen version on this. I'm not even sure it's the same print. This one only had one cover, the painted cover. None of which are the one I grew up with, or the one that was on the original video cover. This one basically had the same special features. It had a Q&A and an interview with a couple of the people who worked on the film, and that's it. And also the soundtrack that was finally released. It was released on I think vinyl, maybe cassette back in the day, but I never saw it. So that was re-released. It's been re-released again. So that's where I'm at now, and that's what I end up watching. I end up watching I ended up watching a YouTube version because my Blu-ray player wasn't working. I just decided not to play the disc because I was debating, do I watch the full frame video or do I watch the widescreen film on Blu-ray? And the the DVD versions, the pixelation and compression in some scenes, particularly the first scene of Unicron, is appalling. I couldn't watch it, and I found on YouTube there were some versions that didn't have that issue. They were transferred in a different way, and that's why I ended up watching that instead. And it looked almost as good as the Blu-ray. I think it was 720, not 1080, so that was the only real difference, which you can't really see that much difference on a TV screen. So I ended up watching the widescreen version. Now the film itself, I can't believe I just talked 5 minutes about just the releases and all that, and the difference in quality and all that. The film itself, pause here in case I want to separate the videos. Now Transformers the movie, it has had a lot of videos done about how it traumatized children. Fortunately, I sort of saw it after I saw the rest of the series. I didn't see it in the time. I sort of knew Optimus wasn't gone, so the issues like that was sort of different for me. But people, I imagine kids seeing it in the cinema in between season 2 and season 3 of the original Transformers back in the day in 1986 would have been disturbed on that level. And also just even today, watching Optimus die, it's quite horrific. I mean, just the way they animated it, the way when he passes, he turns grey and his head just turns, and there's something about it, just, you don't expect robots to decompose and turn into corpses, which they did by having the colour drain out of them. It is kind of disturbing. Now, the film picks up, like I said, after sort of Scramble City. It's 20 years after the events of the first 2 years of the show, which I guess happened in 84, 85, 85, 86. And they jump 20 years to 2026, which seems so far away. It's, 17 years ago now? I remember when I was a kid, 2006 seemed so far away reading the comics, because with the comics they jumped to, they had Galvatron go back in time and go into the current Transformers timeline. They had 2 different Transformers timelines to explain the differences between the American comics and the Australian, the European comics, which we got in Australia. And just all that talk of 2006 seems so far away, but now, it's already passed. But they jumped 20 years, and that was a way in some ways for them to get around licensing cars, and that they just made up their own future science fiction vehicles, and it went really sci-fi with the series. But with the movie itself, it's a pretty simple story. There's a big battle on the Autobot city. Megatron kills Optimus. Megatron is discarded by the Decepticons because he's injured. Starscream takes over. Megatron is found by Unicron, and he is basically reborn as Galvatron, and Skywarp, Thundercracker, and a selection of Insecticons are basically transformed into Cyclonus, his clone, and Scourge and the Sweeps. And they, first off, they kill Starscream, who's been coronated, and then they go after the Autobots because Galvatron, in return for being saved, has been tasked to destroy the Autobot matrix of leadership, which is the only thing that can destroy Unicron. So he, because that is passed on from Optimus when he passes to Ultra Magnus, Galvatron blows up Ultra Magnus, but ultimately doesn't kill him. He's repaired by Ratgar and the Junkions. And then he takes the Matrix to Unicron, presents it to him, but Hot Rod gets it back off him and opens it, transfers into Rodimus Prime, and uses the light of the Matrix to destroy Unicron and basically temporarily win the war. At least they won that battle, but they didn't win the war. But there's temporary peace as Galvatron is sort of temporarily incapacitated, and the Decepticons just dissolve into disarray and sort of are not coordinated enough to be a problem for a while there. and then we lead into the series. And it's interesting, the video release actually had a scroll like Star Wars explaining, the setup before the film. And then at the end, they actually had a voiceover saying that this was a temporary victory in battle and the war would continue in Transformers, the cartoon, and Optimus Prime would return. So I don't remember hearing that at the time, but like I said, by the time I watched Transformers the movie, I already knew that Optimus would come back and there'd be Power Master Optimus Prime and Action Master Optimus Prime and so forth. So I didn't quite have the traumatic experience some children had with it, but that's sort of my little review of the film and my experience watching it, the different releases and all that. I sort of want to talk more about that than the actual film. I might do a separate video about how people reacted to it, because there's about 20 videos on it that I want to watch before I do that. So I thought I'd do two sort of separate takes, and this is just my memories of and reaction to watching Transformers the movie.